name's Gary, and I own Ag Enterprise Supply. We're located in beautiful Cheney, Washington, which for those of you that don't know, we're just 20 miles to the west of Spokane, eastern Washington state. My business, we're an independent supplier in the farm community, and our basic mission is to promote and embrace change, and we find ways to, what others say can't be done. That's probably due to the fact that I'm Irish and I don't know better. I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's session. I was asked to talk about the challenges or opportunities of growing cover crops in the dryland region of the Inland Pacific Northwest. As we all know, there are challenges on both sides of our fence, and that being our farm customers, as well as those of us in the retail business, and we try to work hand in hand as we go through those long-term goals. We, along with our Conservation District and NRCS partners, are 3 short years into finding ways to do, what others say couldn't be done, with growing cover crops in this dryland region of the Pacific Northwest. We're looking to find ways to utilize cover crops to improve soil health, manage expenses, and generate new revenue streams for our customers in the dryland farming region of eastern Washington state. Some of the challenges that we've noticed going into this process, we're about 3 years into it now, but these are a few of the things that have been brought to our attention as we've gotten into the process. The concerns are what cover crop varieties will grow in our low rainfall area. Our rainfall area averages from 8 to 10 inches upwards to 20 maximum in some of the areas. How will my soil moisture be affected? Can we establish a baseline using soil moisture tests to know what's going on in our moisture situation? What will my rotation options be by utilizing cover crops? How can the cover crops affect those rotations? What are the types of seed that we should be using? What will it cost? Where are we going to source it? What are the best ways to plant these cover crops? How will it affect my management plan overall and how we're utilizing our rotations? When will I need to terminate this cover crop, and if so, how? What is the best way to integrate cattle into our grazing? The cattle aspect is really something I'm surprised by, the interest in our growers of bringing cattle back to the farm. One day we all had cows back there, and that was this natural thing when I was growing up. And they disappeared for a long time, and now there's interest in bringing them back to the farm. Will the use of cover crops impact my overall soil health? Well, our natural answer to that is yes. It's the whole reason we're here. So thankfully, we have key growers who embrace change and are willing to find ways to integrate cover crops in their farm management systems. With that being said, we have encountered challenges along the way and have experimented to see what will work best under our dry conditions. Once again, as I stated earlier, annual rainfall varies from 8 to 10 inches in the driest areas, 18 to 20 inches in the wetter areas. Standard rotations will vary from a 2-year rotation of conventional fallow, now pretty much has changed to chemical fallow, to winter wheat, and it's changed to a 3-year rotation of chem fallow. We're using some winter and spring canola and then winter wheat in the drier areas. Our hope is to replace the chem fallow cycle with cover crops. Wetter areas have gotten 4-year rotations, and they're looking to replace the spring wheat portion of those 4-year rotations. I have 3 different scenarios to present. The first one is located in Mansfield, Washington, which is about 120 miles west of Spokane in the dry region. It's put together by Leslie Michael of the Okanagan Conservation District, with whom we've worked very closely with. And she has done a lot of work for us with funding provided through the NRCS Conservation Innovation Grants. The grower we were operating with was Dan Cavadini of the Cavadini Partnership. It's a 3-generation farm. There's grandpa, there's dad, and son that are involved in their farming operation. After 3 years of trials, Leslie put a lot of time and energy to come up with a plan. It took us several years experimenting with the different varieties of covers, the different seeding rates to what we could actually accomplish in this low rainfall area. We tried some of the normal rates that are practiced in other areas that we looked at, which were in the range of 40 seeds per square foot. That was a bomb. We didn't have enough moisture to support those, and we had to find the right varieties that would adapt to the low moisture area. So we found that just for cover, we were in 10 to 12 seeds per square foot, and if we were doing grazing, we were able to get by at 20 seeds per square foot. 3 plots, we have a winter wheat stubble, it's Kimfellow, and we refer to that as the check plot. There's a fall direct seeded winter triticale cover. We have a spring direct seeded cover for grazing. The fall planted winter triticale field was, of course, soil tested prior to seeding to establish a nutrient moisture management plan for the project. The triticale was harvested in late June and yielded 6 tons of forage. A blend of beardless barley and oats were then direct seeded into the triticale stubble at that point. When the seed matured, it was harvested for grain to be used for livestock seeding and also produced an extra revenue stream. After the harvest, the livestock were reintroduced to graze the remaining stubble, and that grazing then was supplemented with some of the previously harvested triticale forage. The introduction of cattle is a new concept that they hope will have additional revenue generating possibilities as well as helping with the soil health process. This field will be reevaluated in the spring to determine what we plan to do next. This is a picture of that after it had been harvested for the grain, and the cows had been put out to graze in the stubble after the harvest. This was when we had a field day. We had the animal nutritionist from our Washington State University out to visit with the growers in terms of what was the best way at this point to try and get the cattle reintegrated back into the farm. The second plot was a spring grazing cover crop. It was seeded for cover crop grazing. Of course, first step again, we went out and soil tested, moisture tested, and developed a nutrient management plan for that. The seed mix consists of corn, sunflower, sorghum, stand grass, purple top, turnips, and millet. This mix was direct seeded into standing wheat stubble on the 20th of May. After 4 to 5 weeks of growth, 42 pair of cattle were introduced for grazing. This was grazed summer long. They were removed from grazing around 1st September after hard frost pretty much terminated our cover. The fear of that was that the prussic acid in the stand grass could become a problem. Well, that in hindsight, we of course should have researched a little closer. We could have, of course, sent samples in, and I think we'd have really benefited a lot more from being able to extend our grazing period. But yeah, it's one of those live and learn things. So we came back in late October and we moisture tested these 3 different plots. The check plot, which was the Kimfellow stubble, had 1.61 inches of available moisture in the top 2 feet. The other 2 things that I wanted to call out was the pH showed 5.61, which is low. Organic matter 1.39, which is really not stellar as well. The fall triticale field, we used a little more moisture in there, of course, growing that forage and whatnot, and the grain. So we had 1.39 inches available in the top 2 feet. The pH was a little better off at 6.13, as was organic matter. The surprise to us all was in our spring grazing mix cover field. We had 2.83 inches of moisture in the top 2 feet. Now I can tell you, I could have been blown over with a feather when we went out there at the end of October. There was no moisture from May 20th when it was seeded until that point in time when we soil tested. We'd had no rainfall, and we were expecting to see nothing but dry dirt. And when we saw the results down 3 feet, where you could see it in the soil probe, how wet it is there, and it was able to be vaulted up into the 3rd foot. That just really was perplexing to all of us. The other thing that was really interesting was to see the pH change in that field up to 7.63. For us in our area, the pH is a big problem with growing cereal crops. Now, if this is just an anomaly, I don't know, but we're certainly going to monitor this to see, because the cost of putting on lime to try and get an increase in pH is just prohibitive. So if this works, this will make this cover crop rotation an easy sell. And the organic matter at that point in time was down somewhat, but I expect that to be up when we test in the spring. This is the cover after the frost that we had in September. One thing we did find at this point was that all of a sudden we found a new source of wildlife habitat. Wildlife in that area, of course, deer hunting is a big thing. One of the growers down the road actually has a club and he sells rights for deer hunting, and he was saying he's seen more deer now to cover there for habitat than he's seen in forever, as there are for birds as well. So the wildlife habitat was a real added bonus, I think, to those of us that were involved. These are some of the turnips that were left in there that we wish, you know, had we been able to graze longer, we could have had more value out of, but of course it's still going to increase the organic matter. Some of the observations from this: cover crops are, you know, as I mentioned, excellent wildlife habitat, which have been a consideration to start with. We're going to need more cattle on spring grazing cover crop acres. We need to change from field grazing to smaller grazing segments, possibly 5-acre paddocks, and we'll put more livestock in there and graze for shorter periods of time. We're going to need to work closer with animal nutritionists when grazing to make sure that we're fulfilling the nutritional needs of the cattle. The spring grazing cover crop with sedan grass will need to also test for prussic acid levels and make sure that's not an issue, so we can continue to graze longer in the fall to take advantage of some of the other situations. Look for better ways to direct seed into terminated cover crops. Check to find if there are other cost share programs available. We were able to work through the Conservation District and the grant, and we had cost share on this project, which is always a good thing. We need to make sure that the bankers are informed as to what we're trying to accomplish as well. The other side of that is making sure that landlords are aware of what we're trying to do. It's one thing I think we've all taken for granted as a grower, you can pretty much do what you want, but when you have landlords involved, it becomes a whole different ballgame, and you have to make sure that they're aware of what's going on. Our second site was located in St. John, Washington. It was done by Dan Harwood. Dan is with the Plutus Rock Lake Conservation District, and his partial funding was from the Washington State Soil Health Committee, of which I have the honor to be co-chairman of. Our grower was Ross Jordan Century Farms. Our rainfall there is 16 to 18 inches. Our goal mainly is to improve soil health by looking to change the current 3-year rotations of chem fallow, winter wheat, spring wheat, with cover crop replacing the chem fallow cycle. We, at this project, we utilized a new product that we handle, and it's an AquaSpy monitoring technology to chart the soil moisture, temperature, and root development in the chem fallow check compared to the cover crop. The AquaSpy probe collects information from seeding date May 5th through our termination August 20th. This program is set to monitor the direct seeded chem fallow in the far background there on the horizon, and the direct seeded cover crop in the foreground. To monitor moisture consumption, soil temperature difference, and root growth depth is what it was being used for. We also observed weed pressure differences in the two areas with weed suppression in mind. Each field received an application of glyphosate late April, and the direct seeded fallow was sprayed an additional time, which usually there would be a total of 3 applications over the year, but only one this year. The AquaSpy soil probes were installed on both sites, 2 in the direct seeded fallow, 2 in the cover crop. The AquaSpy probe is solar powered, and it delivers soil moisture, soil temperatures, root growth, and data to the cloud every 15 minutes. This data is taken by the probe in 4-inch increments down to 48 inches in total depth. This is a graph of some of the moisture consumption that we were able to generate with the AquaSpy probe. We've always thought we knew what was going on under the soil, but of course we were guessing a lot of times, even though we were taking conventional tests, and sometimes that's a little bit after the fact. This is as much in terms of real-time data as can be generated. This is a summary graph of some of the radish cover crops in 17. The probe was placed in May 26th. It shows the active roots. If you look at it there in the bottom left, it shows the root development down clear to 48-inch level, which is really a unique thing for this device to be able to show that. So by July 8th, the roots had reached 48-inch level. And by August 11th, we'd reached maturation. So basically what we're hoping to have is this show us when it is time to terminate before we start depleting our available moisture levels. This is another graph of what we can generate with the data that we get from that device. This is the radish individual sensor graph, and the sensors are picking up root activity at 4-inch increments, starting at the left there, 1 day after the probe was placed, and it's reaching out into, I don't know, it looks like August. Then we have the chem fallow field. All sensors were basically reading flat except for the 4-inch sensor fluctuation due to temperature and rainfall and evaporation. Once again, another graph. And the unique thing with this probe is it gives us a lot more information and data than we've ever been able to access before. And like I say, the neat thing of it is we can pull this up on our phone or iPad or our desktop. We can look and we can overlay what's going on in terms of ambient temperatures and see the relationships of what's happening so we can make better management decisions. This is a picture of the chem fallow of the wheat stubble. This is our cover crop. It was direct seeded May 5th into the spring wheat residue after using a John Deere 1890 10-inch spaced air drill at 10 pounds per acre. The cover crop seed mix had 4 species at this location, the Balkan radish, Graza radish, Ethiopian cabbage, and one from Nebraska. This is approximately 3 weeks into the growth cycle. Here we are, this is approximately 6 to 8 weeks, and you can see that it's really quite consistent across there. And the one thing we were truly impressed with was the weed suppression that we were getting with this type of growth. Once again, more of the same. When we were approaching termination time, we measured about 36 inches in height, and this was at the end of August. So when we terminated, Roundup was used to terminate on August 20th. Cover crop was then mowed September 7th so that we could get through the residue. September 8th, it was seeded back to winter wheat, direct seeded, I should say. And for those of you here that are from the Midwest, our direct seeded term means no-till. We tried no-till in the late 70s, and it was a real disaster, and nobody wanted to go back and repeat that. So we changed and call it our direct seed. The AquaSpy probes were reinstalled again after seeding of the winter crop so we can continue to monitor the moisture levels. Some of the observations that we had from this site: chem fallow from the soil surface to 12 inches deep, the temperatures were higher and there was less moisture than in the cover crop shady ground, which stands to reason. Of course, everybody always felt that in the chem fallow we were conserving moisture when really we were losing it to evaporation because of the temperature differential, which finally the light comes on. The AquaSpy probes information is used to help determine when to terminate based on soil moisture levels. or will use that information in the future. The August by probes will continue to monitor soil moisture, temperature, root development of wood and wheat crops, so we'll be able to follow along with that as well. The other questions, how will cover crops best fit in our rotations that we're used to using? Is there a better seed blend to use in our situation? I believe there is. Would grazing and cover crops in this particular location be an advantage? The grower's kind of not sure he wants to go there yet. And we need to find what works best for overall soil health improvement. The third location is in Uniontown, Washington, and that's about an 80-mile south of Spokane. It was a cost-share project with the Palouse Conservation District and the Washington State Conservation Commission. The growers Ty actually works for the Spokane Conservation District, and they have a family farm down in Uniontown. Their annual rainfall is around 18 to 20 inches on a good year. So our long-term goal there is to improve overall soil health using cover crop grazing, introduce cover crop grazing into the current rotation, generate revenue for lost crop cycle in the current rotation, integrate cattle into our current management system, and find specific cover crop grazing seed blend that works best in this situation. When they went about deciding on their seed blend, the associate that Ty works with was from Minnesota and had been used to using cover crops, and he came up with this blend, which I'm not going to argue. He's a lot smarter person than I am, but we come to find after the fact that probably a 5-way blend is a lot more efficient. I'm not going to bore you with reading through everything that's in this mix, but you know, the thinking was it was good in a higher rainfall area. Yes, when we're fighting moisture, not so much. So we're going to reduce that down for follow through. This is their single disc cross slot air drill. We seeded this blend into a oat stubble Chemfellow. Another picture of them direct seeding the mix into the stubble fallow. We went after a post-plant pre-emergence and applied a Roundup application for weed control. This is a picture of an emergence of the cover. This is about 4 weeks growth. Of course, when you're going into a cattle grazing operation, the one requirement, of course, is fencing. And I, for one, can attest, I built a lot of fence when I was young. And then as I got older at the farm, I spent a lot of time tearing fence out. In the mid-70s, when wheat prices were $5, suddenly the pasture ground became valuable farm ground again. So anyway, this is Ty's kids. So cheap labor, of course, for this usage of building fence. Their farm's located right next to a busy north-south highway, so he wanted to make certain that there was no possible way that they're going to have to deal with cattle getting out. So they put in a 5-strand hot wire, which maybe is a little overkill, but he didn't have to worry. So there's the highway, and that's the proximity of the fence and their grazing area. Another picture here, I don't recall this one, is about 6 to 8 weeks. This is the purple top turnips that were planted. The radishes that were planted in there didn't survive. They were attacked by insects, and none of the radishes made it. Here's the turning out of the cattle. He chose to put in, they were 8-weight yearlings. He's thinking he might reevaluate what he does next time too, but he's turning those cattle into grazing. You can see that the cover we have there has come along and is doing quite well with the back of the cattle standing there. They were in hog heaven. Another picture, some of the sunflowers in the mix. There's another picture of the purple top turnip and how it turned out. Of course, being a part of that and being away from any source of water, he came up with this watering system where he put together, it has a solar powered pump and of course water on a gooseneck trailer, so it was portable. And this is where he was able to water livestock as they were out there grazing in the paddocks. Once again, they had plenty to eat on. This is purple top turnip that had been grazed on. This is a cabbage stock we found that they seemed to like quite well. At the first week of September, we had a killing frost. Once again, this is in the low flat area that's prone to it. We anticipated, but we didn't anticipate it happening this early in the season. So it pretty much terminated things for us, so that was a good news bad news. Once again, after it was terminated, the sunflowers, the other thing that came to light was wildlife habitat. We hadn't thought of, we hadn't prepared for, but it was something that happened, and we had a lot of birds, a lot of deer, and we're quite excited because that's not something that's real prevalent in our area. This is his drill, single disc cross slot drill. I had a video that's not going to play for us today, but this is them direct seeding into the cover crop residue. Once again, the openers and how they're able to navigate through that residue. Slice right through those turnips, no problem, get the seed in the ground. This is some of the ground after it's been seeded. This is another picture of the residue after it's been seeded to winter wheat. It worked much better than we were anticipating, I must say. Skummercock in the grazing trial, some of the expenses. This is about a 13-acre plot that he was dealing with. Seed costs, $325, custom seeding. I won't read it all for you, you can read. The watering system was a big investment, of course, but there again, that'll be expensed out over a 3 to 5 year period. So at the end, his 3-year estimated costs are going to be around $32,000. So we're looking at, are we going to make that money back on raising cattle, or how are we going to do? Some of the soil test reports that we took from down there, the one thing on this is the stubble chem fallow, and in this one too, the pH is 5.5, which is relatively lower than what we'd like to see. And the other thing we noticed were hydrogen levels in this soil sample, 26.2, which is higher than we'd expect to see. His organic matter was sitting in there reasonable, and of course our more reasonable is because of it being in the lower area. The cover crop, the thing that stood out once again, and we were both perplexed with, the pH was up to 7.0. Now we saw that in the drier area, and we thought, well, maybe not. But to see it in this area, go from 5.5 in a check to 7 is pretty amazing. Once again, the organic matter hasn't really, I don't think, built up to the level we want it to be at yet, but it has the potential, obviously. These are some of the test results when we tested for prussic acid on August 18th. I think we had 48 parts per million. On September 12th, we were down to 35 parts per million, so way, way, way below any possible problems. Observations here. The cattle rate of gain was checked in at 3.1 pounds per day. They, at their best, when they've been grazing in just their regular areas, they felt fortunate if they could get 1.5 to 1.6 pounds per day. The organic matter levels in the check plot, of course, a little higher than the cover, but I would be willing to bet next year that'll be reversed. The pH differences, once again, we're certainly going to want to monitor that. That's a huge thing if we can have anything of sorts to increase that. Of course, monitoring of the prussic acid and and this issue is a non-issue. So the thing we found, we need to increase the number of animals per grazed area. We're talking maybe possibly 15 head per 2.5 acre segments, and then rotate those more often. If the pH increase in cover crops is huge, that's going to be an easy thing to sell. He's seeded back using Clearfield winter wheat to be able to control the cover crop regrowth in the springs. So moving forward, we want to modify the current 3-year rotation of winter wheat, spring wheat, and garbs. We look to replace the spring wheat in rotation with the cover crop grazing. We want to consider a 4-year rotation with cover crop grazing after the garbs. We look at a winter cover crop using winter peas, triticale, and canola. Possibly then in April, put livestock out to graze for 45 to 60 days. At the end of that period, we'd come back in and direct seed a summer grazing cover. And then once that's established, we'd continue to graze later into the fall. Then after terminating, we go back to the winter wheat in our rotation. Some opportunities from the retailer's point of view is soil sampling to assess soil changes resulting from cover crop usages, obviously. Adjust nutrient management plans to account for cover crops. We're advising on cover crop management, advise on cover crop seed or mixes, selling or help find source of cover crop seed, provide cover crop seeding services, advise on crop protection that won't affect cover crops. In our areas, we do use some residual chemistries in our wheat rotations that sometimes could limit us, so we have to be careful about that. Advise on termination strategies, provide termination services, design more on-farm field trials to test the new cover crop mixes and practices, work with the growers to adjust their overall management plans, provide training on cover crop basics, maintain communications with the Extension, NRCS, and conservation districts with regards to the adoption of cover crops, and of course, last but not least, promote soil health. So with that, I'm going to leave you with just a few thoughts that we try to hold near to our heart, and that's always to find ways to do what others say can't be done. And most of all, embrace change in the name of soil health. Thank you very much for your time.